You're very welcome back. So there was, in amongst Irish rugby doing its thing and the strangest match of the day most of us will ever see, there was hurling over the weekend. Tommy Walsh is with us. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening, Joe.
So I might just as a jumping off point touch on something I had not intended to touch on, which is the structure of the league, because everybody is making the point that it's not quite working. And yet I sat down to watch the highlight show last night on RTE with Don Logue and Liam Sheedy and Joanne Cantwell. And it was really striking on the flagship here, Hurling Fans is your weekend of hurling. Even they were just very down on what's being produced and a bit frustrated and do not feel that the quality of games is good enough. And reading every piece in the papers this afternoon, it's pretty unanimous that this thing is not working. The league is not working. Where are you and what we're seeing over the weekend and the last number of weeks?
Yeah, Joe, I suppose I go against the grain on that now, to be honest with you. Speaking as both a supporter and a player, I love the league the way it is. As a player, Joe, love the league. Why? It didn't have the same intensity, same pressure as championship games where it was do or die. It was all about the result. Performance, yes, managers and coaches, they're raving about performance. But really, nothing mattered, only the victory at the end of the day when it comes to knockout championship. So league was always beautiful. You start off in, at that time was around February. And, you'd have crowds of maybe 10, 15,000 at it. Huge excitement, start of the year, looking forward to playing probably with new teammates, lads coming fresh out of minor, Joe, players that maybe the supporters hadn't seen before. It's great. Any new youngsters coming into a panel gives a great buzz, a great excitement to guys that are there maybe a while. So it was lovely and fresh, and we absolutely loved the league. We didn't always have our best teams out because, you had the Ballyhale lads maybe usually during Club All-Irelands, they might be rested to come back towards the later on the year. So young lads got their chance. Or maybe if you weren't on the team the previous year as well, Joe, you got your chance in the league. And you could play without, I suppose, the great intensity, even eyes looking at you, that there would be when you're playing Croke Park in a Leinster final or a Leinster semi-final.
Could I jump in there for a sec, Tommy? I accept all of that. That sounds to me like it's just working for the players, therefore. Like, we're having a great time and the spectacle isn't very good. Like, for instance, after Clare Galway, watching the analysis and watching the scores, I think Liam Sheedy made the point that this, if he was manager and this was a training match behind closed doors, he'd have blown the whistle and said, what's going on after a few seconds? There was that little intensity. So I'm sure you and the players on the field do enjoy that easier aspect. But I mean, what's the point of a tournament? Let them go away and have challenge matches and let fans turn up for free if that's the attitude, no?
No, I wouldn't agree. I didn't agree with that view either because, do supporters not love seeing new players come out in, say, that game in, we'll say, Nolan Park yesterday, maybe 10, 15,000 at it in Semple Stadium. Although Semple Stadium was a bit different with Waterford and Tipperary, that was like a championship game.
Yeah. The
Galway and Clare game. Right, there's huge crowds at it. Do the supporters not like seeing new young players? How many new young players are we seeing?
I think they would like seeing new players. I suppose the argument was you can have new players or not, but actually it's just the intensity of it. Because Henry Shefflin came out after the Galway win against Clare, and even he kind of conceded, oh look, we're all managing different training loads and we're doing different things. So even that was a subtle acknowledgement that the intensity of the games isn't maybe where they will be. So yeah, people like seeing the young players, but young players can still be part of an intense contest. It feels like they're just fulfilling fixtures, not Galway alone in this instance, but it feels like too many of the teams are perhaps just fulfilling the fixtures, training very hard, and nobody cares that much if they win the league or not.
Yeah, well, listen, I will agree with you. I think there's no right or wrong answer to this. I think it's all a matter of opinion. So you and other supporters like you might prefer more championship-like feeling to a league. Versus probably me and thousands other would like to see the opposite. What's going on at the moment? I'll give you an example. You work hard on a Sunday there on the radio all day. You want to go home to a nice dinner. Say my dinner is a good chicken roast. You have your stuffing, you have your Wexford potatoes, you have your gravy all over it. You can't wait for it after a day's work. What if you eat a steak dinner 10 minutes before it? Are you going to enjoy it as much? So we've a big, intense league for, say, the next 2 or 3 months. Are we going to be able to, as supporters, Tom with Joe, are you going to have the same, fervour and excitement and build-up to the championship 2 weeks later? Because you have to remember, the championship starting 2 or 3 weeks after the league final. So like I even found, like, say, reporting on the games, we're going for maybe 6 or 7 weeks in a row, and you do be tired because you're building up all week that you're ready for the game on the Sunday, and that's just as working in the media. And like, after a while you do get tired. Towards the old way, when it was different, when you had a championship game every 3 or 4 weeks, that was definitely different. You could have a more championship-like league then. But I think the format of the Munster round robin and the Leinster round robin at the moment, I don't think it lends itself to having a championship-like league.
Yeah.
I thought Brian Lohan, I don't hear Brian Lohan's interview.
I did, yeah.
Brian Lohan, yeah, like he said, and I thought he was on the money. He said, it's a time to experiment players, but you also want to win. And I do think all managers are trying to do that. I think it's just the experiment of the players really is maybe the likes of the supporters want to see their full championship team. I don't know.
No, totally. And we'll get into the hurling now. I should tell you, by the way, I haven't seen enough of the hurling league. I'm busy Six Nations on TV and stuff, so I'm kind of not seeing it. But I'm just reflecting the vibe I got from the highlight show last night, and even just reading pieces today. GA writers are saying this really isn't up to scratch. And like, the reason it's happened is fairly obvious. You remember a couple of years ago when Division 1A and Division 1B was, there was a chasm between the two. You did not want to be in Division 1B. And so Division 1A was amazing. All these teams fighting to stay in it, incredibly intense games. And then the almost the playoff in Division 1B to see which of the two got up was this amazing game. So that is where we were, and it was brilliant, I thought. Like, as a spectator, it was brilliant, but certainly what's emerged is players and management said it was too much, and you have to listen to them, I appreciate, but they say too stressful, too much, and also what's exacerbated that now is the round robins. So between the stress of staying up and now you have round robins thrown in, I don't know, it doesn't sound like the hurling fraternity are going to go back.
Yeah, well, if you also see the argument, especially at that time, Joe, if you remember back to Division 1A and 1B, was the argument that we're not doing enough to promote hurling in Antrim,
yes,
in Laois, in Kildare and Westmeath. So, we can't have it every way. I think the hurling, it is going on at the moment that do we put a hurling to every youngster? It's part of our culture, it's part of our history of this country. It's our own game, the game of hurling, the greatest field game in the world. That's the argument put out there. And there's so few counties probably at the top as opposed to the Gaelic football version. And I think by having it the way it is, yes, you're not going to have the huge championship-like league games, but you're promoting, like, the crowds that are going to the games in Laois. I was at the Kilkenny Laois match in O'Moore Park, a great game.
Yeah.
I wasn't at the Kilkenny and Antrim game up in Antrim. That was supposed to be a fantastic game again, huge supporters. So, like, you can't have it every way. And I do agree with you. Listen, there's no right or wrong answer. I think you'll have half the people will look one way and half will look the other,
I suspect you're right. I'd be curious. 53106 is the text number. Hurling fans, maybe get in touch. Let us know what you make of it. Curious for your thoughts on Tipperary. So, Liam Call's first season in charge. They are scoring goals to beat the band. They've scored 10 goals in their 4 games. 10 goals and 102 points. And obviously, Liam Call's Waterford tended to score lots of goals as well, and the Waterford players would say that he'd always be onto them saying, go for it, go for goals. So we're seeing that in Tip. We're seeing an energy about Tip. Is this the beginning of a big year for Tipperary, or not so sure?
Yeah, well, I think it's definitely a mindset, this goal scoring, Joe. Remember, we had an old teacher of ours from Carlow came into us to speak in the club one time, and he was saying you had to go for maybe 5 goals to score 1. And if you look at these Tipperary players, every one of them are taking on their man. Even the Cork players seem to be doing it at the moment with Harley. Every time they get the ball, they take on their man, which creates goal chances. You saw Seamus Callan before he went off injured, and hopefully he gets some good news on that. But he had a great goal chance that only he would have taken it. Say 8 out of 10 forwards would tip that ball over the bar. He went to take on his man 2 or 3 times, and only for a great save from the Waterford goalie, Billy Nolan, he kept the ball out of the net. But Tipperary players, they're not just scoring these goals by chance. It seems to be a mindset that Liam Call puts into his teams. When you get the ball inside, take on your man, and there has to be runners outside. I think you have to be excited if you're a Tipperary man, Joe, because they're coming from different places. There's a kind of a changing of the guard. Like you were talking about the class of 2010,
yeah.
kind of backbone that the Tipperary team that win the All-Ireland, won the under-21 at the same time. They're all coming to the, over the 30 age mark now. So they need new players. We saw that probably in the last year of Liam Sheedy's reign. They probably need to freshen up the team with new young players. Jake Morris, he scored a huge amount of goals for Tipperary on minor first to win an All-Ireland. Then under 20, he won 2 All-Ireland, scoring lots of important goals. One of them was a last-minute winner against Cork in a Munster under-21 final. So Jake Morris, I think, just needed someone maybe to put some faith in him, that he's playing probably a run of games consecutively. And we've seen the 3 goals he scored at the weekend. Every one of them bounced low into the net. How many goals do we see saved, Joe, where you give the goalie, all the goalies now seem to be top quality. They're doing their own training, I suppose, goalkeeping training away from the panel. If you hit the ball halfway, up their body at all, you're going to stop it 9 times out of 10. You bounce it low into the corners. And Jake Morris did that for every one of his goals. And it's the work rate. I've never seen Tipperary as fit in years. They look so slim.
And Tommy, do you, because not to get back to our previous conversation, but Waterford last year, almost a cautionary tale. Great league, and they look so fit in the league and so powerful, win the league and capitulate then come championship for whatever reason. That'll be the nagging worry at the back of Cahill's mind. I presume he's learned something from last year.
Yeah, of course it's a worry, because you always remember the last year. You're going to remember with Liam Cahill, the very same thing kind of is happening. But what about Tipperary last year? They won no games and still didn't come out of Munster. So I always look at stats. You can kind of look at stats any way you want to build up your own story. What about 2019 and 18, where Tipperary or Limerick won 2 league finals? So then suddenly, is that the right thing to do? So listen, I can understand your point, but I think it is a hard one for Liam Sheedy, because he doesn't have a seasoned team that he can wait until the summer to have them peak. He has to actually find players to replace maybe.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, and I would think it's a symptom of a new manager as well. Even Jack O'Connor in the football last year with Kerry, desperate to win the league. This year, not as important because we're a bit more settled. And Derek Ling, he's very much talking about wanting... Not all these managers, it seems, want the semi-final and the final in the league. He wants a semi-final. He wants as many games as possible. And probably an interesting game next week will be Kilkenny Waterford at Nolan Park, and that'll decide who goes into the semi-final, with probably Limerick, Tip and Cork through already. So Kilkenny play Waterford, Nolan Park next weekend to see who joins them. And Ling is saying, I want these games. That's a real new manager, giving as much prep time as possible. How are Kilkenny looking to you?
Yeah, sure. Listen, he's taken over from, arguably the greatest manager that has ever, managed in the game of hurling. Brian Cody, 11 All-Irelands, and all he has won, and probably more respected even than the titles was the spirit he seemed to grow in his teams. But I suppose the one advantage for Derek is, even in all Brian's greatness, it's 2015 since they were able to manage to win the Lee McCarthy Cup. So he's not coming after Kilkenny winning 2 or 3 All-Irelands in a row, or even one All recently. So I think that definitely does help, that the Kilkenny public do realise it. There's a building job. But I think there's the spine of a very, very good team. And why would I say that? Is because the young players that I was talking about maybe 3 years ago, they're suddenly now in their mid-20s. They have the strength and conditioning work built up. You can see the Kilkenny boys, they're definitely, if you compare them to the players of my time, they're much more, we'll say, physical guys that lived in the gym, I suppose, for the winter months, as opposed to ourselves. Yeah. And I think that's a testament to him and the way the game has gone. You have to be like that to take on the likes of Limerick. And I find them guys now are growing into the roles in the centre. And maybe the older players and younger players coming in, they're building up the positions on the wings. Like you see, Billy Ryan, you have Hugh Lawler, all these guys now taking up centre positions. Richie Reid is now, he's probably the best centre-back in club hurling with Ballyhale for the last a number of years, and it was only last year to put him in centre-back with Kilkenny. They were playing him wing-back, they were playing in midfield. Last year, centre-back, and he's an awesome centre-back. And they're building the team around these players. And, Billy Drennan is a new young player star, and he was part of Derek Ling's under-20 team, Joe. Billy would have All-Irelands in handball. He's a serious sports star. Billy Drennan comes from a small club in North Kilkenny, Galmay, and he's been doing this since he was 10, 11 years of age. It's just a fantastic player, and he's really grown into his role as free taker and, popping over 3 or 4 pints of play. You have Garo Dunn from our own club. And as I said, the young players from the last few years are now filling up centre roles. So right, I think it's very exciting. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and Waterford coming to town. Davy Fitzgerald. It's like that's game of the weekend. I saw him. He was on the Late Late on Friday, and he was asked, what's it like being back at Waterford? And he was saying, well, first time around, I had this team that were not the end of the road, but hardened, seasoned, elder statesmen. Whereas he feels almost this current batch are coming into their peak, and he said, super excited. And everybody was excited about Waterford this time last year. So what's your read? They were beaten by Tipperary over the weekend, down to 14 men. What's your read on what's he trying to do with Waterford early stages, do you think?
Yeah, well, he definitely has a few injuries. Conor Prunty, I see, going off the weekend, Austin Gleeson going off. So there's a few injuries there, and he lost a few lads to Australia and stuff. So, he hasn't got the perfect package starting off either, Davy Fitz, as regards the team or the panel that he can pick from. Jamie Barron will probably serve a suspension maybe after being sent off.
Yeah.
So it's not simple, but I think like the league semi-finals and finals, after looking at Waterford last year, just looking at how far the game has come on, Joe. So now you don't just have a speech the Wednesday before a game or a Friday. You go out and you rile up your team and go out and play the match with fire and brimstone. Now you analyse teams to death. And as Liam Sheedy said in the Sunday game last night, and Don Logue, he said, you're in the semi-finals and finals. It gives your opposition, because you know who you're playing. It's not like it's an open draw from championship. You know the teams you're going to be playing in either the Munster or the Leinster Championship. So do you want to be seen in, the 2 or 3 weeks coming up to championship in these huge profile games? So it's a difficult one. I'd say Davy will be happy enough to put in a good performance, but maybe keep a low profile coming into them that Munster round robin.
Oh dear, it's a hell of a competition.
You don't really work.
Right, okay. We're out of time, sorry to say. Let's have a longer chat in the next couple of weeks, maybe, inevitably as we head towards the serious stuff. But thanks, Tommy, for this evening.